So this is a weird one to put last because I think it's one of the most important ones, incidentally. But I think everything else that we've talked about kind of built up to this. So we talked about video, we talked about the journey a patient will go through to a certain extent. We talked about how to use Facebook. We talked about YouTube. We talked about all that stuff. Email to me is exactly what this says. This is your most valuable asset, in my opinion. And most docs don't think of it that way. So let me make an example of that. If I were to go in and I would say I'm purchasing a practice. If I went into a practice and they were like, I have 10,000 files of people that I haven't talked to in 20 years, like there's zero worth to that. But imagine if you were walking into a practice and they said, well, we have 2,500 patient files and we communicate with them every single week. We have an open rate of 80% and a click-through rate of 10%. Well, I know that there's just food ready to fall off the tree because they're engaging with their people. And the same holds true for you, meaning you might not want to buy a practice or you might not be trying to sell a practice, but it is the most valuable asset that you'll probably have in your practice because it gives you that direct communication. With all of the other platforms that we've talked about, Facebook and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, everything that we talked about yesterday, those are other people's turf. So they changed the algorithm. I mean, I'm sure that Kevin remembers the days as well. It's like, I remember when I put out a post and everybody saw it. Like, those days are long gone, and they ain't coming back. So email gives you the opportunity to directly communicate. Yes, email open rates are not 100%, but it is a heck of a lot better than many other things. And also people, we kind of talked about prospecting. Matt did yesterday, prospecting on Facebook versus Google ads and what are people looking to do? Because the closer you are to what you're doing and what they're actually trying to do, that's alignment, right? That's where there's clarity, which increases conversion. My point of that being is that while people are scrolling through Facebook, they're not always looking for a chiropractor, which is why Google ads for chiropractor near me is a lot more aligned. But email is a really unique thing where it gives you the ability to have those direct calls to action. You can be passive as well. And more important than anything, we dove into it yesterday and I think we will as well today, it gives you the ability to push people to your other channels, right? So it gives you the ability to give them a little bit of information and then leave a link to get them back to your website to help increase traffic and SEO. If you're trying to grow that YouTube or that podcast, emailing your people and giving them a link, subscribe, check it out, here's what we're talking about today. That is a massive value. It's a massive value. So it's probably your most important thing. So your email list and automation, you're going to be like this guy before you know it. No, I'm just kidding. But it really is, people have built $100 million businesses, probably billion-dollar businesses off predominantly email. Did anybody see the Russell and Dean and Tony Robbins software launch like a month or so ago?
43 times today.
So they used Facebook ads and a whole bunch of other stuff, but they used email predominantly. I think that the stats on that were something like, I think it ended up being, I was in San Diego and somebody knew somebody who was in their organization. It pulled in $10 million the first day of launch. And the expectation. Oh, they did? They did? So that's a lot, right? And that might not be what it is for you or your tool or your instrument or your practice, but the bottom line is it shows that is where the money is, so to speak, in a good way, because it gives you the ability to communicate in a controlled fashion. So more than 50% of people check their personal email more than 10 times a day. Anybody fall into this? I'm probably like, you add another zero on there, and it's probably getting close for me. And 99% of consumers check their email every single day. So people are hanging out. Yes, you're not going to have a 99% open rate probably, but with good cadence and volume and a building and growing list, that can add up over time. I send about 50,000 emails a month through the Evidence Based Chiropractor. So that's a decent volume for what we do, you know what I mean? But you start to break that up and say, okay, well, I send pretty much a guaranteed weekly email. And then let's say I have 7,000 roughly people on my list, 7 times 4, we're already at 32,000 before any automations, right? So now people are coming in and out and they downloaded something and all the lead magnets and everything that we've discussed. Now that starts, those things are going automatically. The little helpers 24/7 is pushing that stuff out, which is the beauty of it. And you can do the same for your practice as well. So email is super confusing for most people, and that's the problem, right? So bottom line is sometimes this stuff can be confusing. I already talked about sending a gazillion emails, so let's kind of dive into some of the brass tacks. This was last 30 days from, I use Infusionsoft, which is probably way more robust than you need, but just to let you know. I used MailChimp for years, and then I switched to Infusionsoft because we were sending a lot in somewhat complex fashion. So sending a lot, unique opens, 18%, unique clicks, a little bit, I'd like to be closer to 2, but this stuff adds up, right? I mean, if you start looking at some of this data, this is the opportunity to push, hundreds of people to different platforms or to different places and really be robust with the amount of interaction that you're having. And that drives all your other platforms. Remember, all these things should play together. If you're doing everything in isolation, it's like whack-a-mole. But if you, again, content pyramid style, you create your video, you break that up and transcribe it, and you have your audio and your emails hanging out at the bottom, pushing people back up to all the other channels, now it's harmonious, and that's a great place to be, because not everybody's on every channel, and not everybody sees everything. So don't hesitate to kind of get out there with it. So let's talk about how you can use it and kind of create a plan of action. So it's 3 keys to a successful campaign. In my opinion, subject line, make it super compelling, right? The subject line is probably how many of us open emails. First, you look and see who sent it, right? But unless you're somebody's brother, mother, sister, or father, you probably gotta have something compelling in the subject line. So here are some simple examples. So this is what I'd call the new email, the lessons email, and the results email. This is the format, and these are some specific examples, right? So new email literally says new, and then you'd insert the title of your blog post if you're gonna drive somebody back to the blog. So new, is your arm pain coming from your neck? New is one of those catch words if somebody sees it on an email where they are gonna be more likely to open it. And we were talking about copywriting a little bit yesterday. This is one of those things. There is only one goal of the subject line. What is that goal? Yeah, exactly, to get them to open the email. That's nothing more. And there's only one goal of the first line of the email, to get them to read the second line of the email. It's classic Dan Kennedy copywriting. Then there's a lessons email, number lessons I learned by, 5 lessons I learned by eating less bread. These are simple things to put together, right? It almost ties back to those blog headlines that we were looking at yesterday. And then the results email, how we got whatever result in whatever time, how we helped Jackie eliminate her neck pain in less than 2 weeks. Now, some of these, obviously you want to be careful and not be like guaranteeing things, or you don't want to, if somebody didn't give you the permission to share their name, be cognizant of all that stuff. But there's a lot of different ways you can go with all of these. These are just simple examples. So 3 emails to get started immediately if you wanted. The new email, the lessons email, and the results email. That is an easy template to get started, and then utilize these guys in the middle to start the process. So that gets you a head start there. So the next aspect is the copy or the body, right? You want to deliver engagement, education, and entertainment, in my opinion. So what's in the email? You did a headline, subject line, it looks good, I clicked in. What am I getting from there? This is 2 examples of emails that I've sent, and emails that so they're a little bit different. They're not patient emails, but a lot of the same lessons apply, right? So this is more of a what I'll call like an interest email, meaning it's not hardcore about like facts about stuff. It's more playful. Ever been to the gym and watched my first, does anybody get this email, by the way? Anybody get this? So we've all been there, it's hilarious, but why does it happen? The answer is simple, and experience, you learn how to use equipment. So this was, for a webinar that I did. But I want you to notice a couple different things. There is not like a supremely long paragraph of stuff. These are broken up in 1 or 2 lines, right? So that's to keep people moving. There's also different things going on. There's an underline, there's a bold, there's a smiley face. In here, there actually was also a little GIF of somebody like completely using an equipment wrong, which is why it says, Ben, first day at the gym guy. So there was a GIF in there as well. But you can see it's also relatively short. This isn't too long. It just is kind of breaking down, hey, I want to get your attention right here. Here's what I can deliver, a how, and here's a link to get started, right? So it's driving to some form of a call to action. So this is an example of what I'll call kind of a playful email. The next one is more of what we do within the Smart Chiropractor. So this is a little bit more hardcore, so to speak. So this would be what I would utilize in terms of a long-term drip sequence for patients, meaning they're just getting something one time a week from me, one time a week. Here I'm talking a little bit more clinical, right? So I'm breaking down, a little bit of disc and, where does chiropractic fit in? What are a few facts they might not know? And then I have a nice subtle call to action at the bottom. So your body has a credible ability to heal without drugs or surgery, even from disc herniations. Give us a call today to get on the road to recovery. So that's a pretty passive call to action. I'm not saying come in today for 90% off your visit, but it's just stimulating that thought. Regardless of whether you're doing something like the kind of the playful style, what I'll call, or whether you're doing more on the educational style for the copy, I think it always why does it matter? Who is the identifying factor, right? How do you identify them, him, her, whatever it may be? And then what are some interesting points, almost like the video, right? Your key pain, like what's the pain points, what's the key points, what are the awesome facts, so to speak? And then tidying up, and we'll dive into call to action in a minute, but tidying up with a call to action at the bottom that stimulates them to do something. Sometimes that thing might be head over and come to my webinar. Sometimes that thing might be, hey, if this sounds like you, give us a buzz today. And you can play with those in different ways. We talked about those, kind of more transitional call to action or direct call to action. So call to action, subtle yet effective. I don't think everything needs to be like a burning fire. So we kind of already went over these, right? You can see here, this was for a webinar. So, click to register for this and how to get killer results. So it's showing a little bit of like, what's the benefit? I mean, most people aren't opposed to learning, but they want to know what's the benefit they're going to get from learning the information, right? So keep that in mind. And nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect on every single one by any stretch. And then here we had, give us a call to get on the road to recovery. That's a little light. Like I probably could be more specific and a little bit more, intense on that. But again, this is a long-term drip, so it would be going out to my entire email list as a practice owner. I would be sending these once a week forever. So I don't need to hammer those people. Some of them might actively be patients, and that kind of thing. But I just want to make sure I at least have something where if they're on mobile as well, that they press their thumb right there and it calls my front desk. Right, and most email service let you enter when you do a link, you can enter it as a file or a website or a phone number. So then if somebody's checking it on mobile, it automatically clicks right over.
Speaking of the mobile.
So essential email campaigns. So these are the three that I think are super, super important. Onboarding, long-term drip, and then events. Onboarding your new patients, in my opinion, is super, super important. So who does an onboarding thing with their patients currently? Kevin. Kevin's a superstar today. So, that's good. Well said. All right. So I say two things about this. Everybody on their stick drive has this complete onboarding sequence built out as a doc, as a Microsoft Word doc on your stick drive. So like the actual copy, like not just this picture, but the actual thing. So if you want to start doing that, you have everything you need. That's actually going to be some of the workshop. Is just you can hack right into it starting right now and type your practice name in and that kind of thing. So you actually just get it done. So this is what I recommend. This can be tweaked, it can be messed with. There's no perfect thing, but this is where we've seen success. So day one, somebody comes into your practice, send them an email that day welcoming them. And let me take a step back. The goal of this is to reduce friction. The biggest opportunity for drop-off is in the first week or two. Now, you might be rounding up care in some cases after a couple weeks. That's okay. But if somebody's confused after their first visit, or they don't know who to call after their second visit, you've spent all that time, energy, money getting them in your front door. If they fall off because of confusion, that sucks. Like you need to absolutely do everything you can to eliminate that. And while all of us probably feel like, hey, during my new patient exam and when somebody comes in, we do a great job, that's like a fire hose to people. Like again, we talked about yesterday, like if they don't know who you are, they've never seen the location, they're not picking up any of that information. So touching them through email and letting them know each step of the process, they can have something to reference. Their spouse asks them what's going on. This is absolutely crucial to having what I call compliance and retention, not in a weird scammy way, in a way that you're actually just serving the patient best. And chiropractors historically, I mean, some of us probably get the reminders every once in a while from like a dentist or a dermatologist or something like that. Chiropractors typically are woefully inadequate with this. So this can make a huge difference if you're doing all that other work content-wise, if you're getting people in the front door, so to speak. Keeping them there should be a foregone conclusion, especially when something like this is literally like a setup one time and forget it kind of thing. It's absolutely crazy not to do it. So let's break down a little bit of components. Welcoming people, right? Hey, we're happy you came in today. You know, pretty basic. Like, it doesn't need to be crazy. You're not asking them for anything. You're just letting them know that day, hey, we were happy to see you. You'll see the specific copy as we dive through. Day number 2, I like hitting them the next day and saying, you could insert YouTube, podcast, whatever you're trying to push or promote, but Facebook tends to be the best channel. Hey, we have a bunch of great health tips that we put up and think would be perfect to accelerate your progress. Be sure to check out and connect with us on Facebook. Well, now I understand why. Not just like, find us on Facebook. Well, no. But if it's like, well, we put out, exclusive content, health videos, interviews with other people in the community that are health and fitness minded, and this can accelerate the progress you get in our practice. Oh, okay. There's nobody that doesn't want to get out of a doctor's office quicker, right? So typically, like, people want unrealistic results quite often. So letting them know, hey, this can accelerate what you can do in our office is a value add, right? Importance of care, day number 4. So you've probably seen the person a couple times at this point, maybe once or twice. I give them a day break, and then I like to email them and say, hey, and this is, I don't make this super specific to their conditions either. I make it really generic because I don't want, you could get hyper specific, but I like ease with something like this. So the importance of care is just re-emphasizing, hey, you've made a great decision by coming in. The plan that we put together, we're really looking forward to working with you, and it's just that little subtle, we're here for you kind of thing. You're not trying to sell anything necessarily, but just letting them know. Day 6, I like to hit the frequently asked questions. You could move these around a little bit, but I give a day or 2 break, and then I like to have frequently asked questions. This is tying into they're going to start their second week, so I like to be able to say, hey, here's a question or 2 you might have after being in our practice, for the last week. Here's the common questions, and where would you get those? Well, you get them from what you actually normally get for questions, right? And just dive into that. Maybe it's hours, maybe it's whatever the case may be, but just touching them again and letting them know, hey, here are some frequently asked questions we have. It might be relative to how long does it take to get what. I mean, you can go a million different directions, but proactively addressing those and just source that information from your current patients or what you get asked. Those are the best for you, right? Day 8, trust and benefits, just a little bit more of building, hey, here's some of the benefits we hope for and expect when many patients came in. Again, just reinforcing that message of that they're in the right place. Day 10, referrals through shareable content. This is where I'll start to actually really drop a link and try to get them to share something, right? So this is where I'll say, at this point, I feel probably pretty good that they've made some progress. They've been in a week and a half. I probably am on the right track, I would assume, 90% of the time. So this is where I'm starting to lean in from a referrals perspective by, hey, share this, it might be something similar to that disc herniation email, but it might have a little different call to action at the bottom saying something like, if you know somebody that struggled with this as well, we'd love for you to share this and forward it on to them, right? So it's casual, I'm not overbearing, but I'm starting to get into that mode. And then day 12, reviews and testimonials. Obviously, at this point, you probably have made some pretty good progress. They're 2 weeks in, and that's a good opportunity to go through this. This is a basic framework. You could get massively complex, but from a very basic capacity, I would highly recommend this. And yes, this is what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the first 2 weeks. Then you're cooling out to your once a week forever. So you don't need to email them every single day for the first 45 days they're in your practice, in my opinion, by any stretch. And you might choose to chop one of these out. That's A-okay too. This is like, the whole thing. You might choose to pull one and say, I'd rather do 6 in 12 days. That's okay. There's no problem with that. But this seems to get people going, and they also know at this point that you're going to communicate with them via email. So when you send the once a weekers, they know what's coming. They know they can expect that, and that's going to be more likely that they open it. Where it's not just they started in the practice, they never heard from you, and then like a month later they start getting an email a week. Like, that's disconnected and disjointed. But if it's like, well, the first day I got an email and they welcomed me, great. and this helps them out along that process, that's what you want it to do, right? Kind of that long-term drip. I mean, to me, this is where the money is. I mean, the retention and compliance early on is crucial, or else if everybody's falling out of the bucket before they even get a result in your practice, AKA if you're not onboarding, that's bad, right? But this is where the real money is. So who's the most likely person to pay you in the future? Somebody that's already paid you money in the past, right? So if you have a database of 400, 500, it doesn't have to be 5,000, 400 inactive patients. If you're not touching them one time per week and trying to, not trying to get them back in a scammy way, but saying, hey, did you know this? Did you know that? And I'll give you an example of this. There is not a single person in this room that's had a patient come in for a neck issue. You examine their full spine, you talk about their low, maybe you even adjust their low back because they have a problem, and down the road, somebody says to them about a low back, and they're like, that chiropractor works on the neck. People don't get it, is my point of this. So, tell them again. So long-term drip allows you to touch on all of those other things. Somebody might come in for one issue, but you might do 27 different things. Allow that email sequence to show them. If they come in for a shoulder injury or issue, if they're coming in for developmental issues, there is probably much more that you have under your wheelhouse, but you have to show that to them. And again, when you're just telling them in the room, that's essential. Obviously, that's good patient-centric care. But if it stops there, you're missing out on massive opportunity. We have seen with chiro emails, we had one of the first docs that utilized it had a list of 400 inactive patients, not crazy. He emailed the list and he got four new patients in the first week. Now, some of that is probably unrealistic numbers long-term because, but meaning he got a great result because he had never emailed before. So people were ready, right? So it wasn't like his list had been tapped out, so to speak. But the bottom line is, my point is that even if you get one call back per week, that's 4 new patients per month just by sending 4 emails to somebody. And if you have a list that's 1,000, if you have 1,500, inactive patients, you can generate serious things. It's like, and here's the thing, it's not about tricking, scamming somebody to come in. It's like, I've been meaning to call. That's the person. You have to engage and touch them so that you can be present and top of mind. And here's the other thing. If you don't do that, then what they do is they go onto Google, they search chiropractor near me, maybe looking for you, maybe not. Now you better have your ad game in place, you better have everything else, and you're overpaying for the people who already know, trust, and like you. So you should not overpay for the people that know, trust, and like you, but if you never communicate with the person, what the heck do you expect them to do, right? So that is the absolutely clutch part about a one-time per week long-term sequence. So here's kind of what that looks like behind the scenes. I can actually bring up a live demo during the workshop if we want. So the way we build it out is basically, you can see it right here, right? Wait 1 week, week 1, wait 1 week, week 2, from Dr. Jeff, this would be Dr. Jeff Langmaid or Jeff at the Evidence Based Chiropractor, whatever your email address would be. We got the subject line, and then you can personalize based upon, hey or hi, first name or last name, that kind of thing, and it just pulls it in. You don't have to obviously type every person's first name or last name. So just one time per week emailing can make such a huge difference. It's not overbearing. You're not trying to kill people and bat them over the head with your email service and overwhelm them. But man, if you have 50, 100, 1,000 patients inactive and you're not communicating with them, I can't stress it enough, if you're doing everything else correct, you're still missing crazy opportunity and overpaying for all of it, unless you are getting people who know, trust, and like you back in the door when they're ready. And when they're ready is on their watch, but you can always stay top of mind by putting out content, but definitely by sending emails. So the 3 email sequences that are absolutely clutch. Onboarding, right? Onboarding, retention, compliance early on. Long-term drip and nurture, that is how you are going to be able to reap and sow from everything that you've done in the past. People know, trust, and like you. You have to communicate with them. And then invitation to events. This can be online and offline, in my opinion. So you might host webinars, you might have an in-person workshop. There's a million different ways that you can go when I say events. They could mean a bunch of different things. But this would be just a simple sequence. Email somebody, just a 4 email sequence, right? Email 2 weeks before the event. Hey, in 2 weeks, I'm hosting an online webinar, or in 2 weeks, we're hosting a workshop in our practice. However you want to do that, right? And then 2 days before, just that reminder email, hey, it's coming up, if it's Tuesday, on Thursday, we're hosting blah, blah, blah in our practice. Cool. Or online. And then email 3, the morning of the event, hey, last minute, remember that we're hosting it. And then if there's a replay, so specifically if it's online, or if you're doing what you really should, which is even if it's a workshop, you film it, and then there's a YouTube video, then you can send it out to everybody as well. In case you weren't able to attend, we had a bunch of people ask, and now we have the video available on YouTube where you can check it out. So this is super simple. It's just 4 emails. You don't need to go crazy with it. But again, you'll start to get people in a good way, so to speak. You'll start to keep people engaged with the practice. So again, if we put the journey together, from an email perspective, we have patient comes into your practice, they receive an onboarding sequence, they know you, they trust you, they like you, you've answered questions, and then after that, they might go in and out of active care, but they drop right in after that initial email sequence of the onboarding, 6, 7 emails over 12 days, they automatically dump into 1 time a week forever. So as they become an inactive patient down the road, they're getting touched once a week. And then you have that simple 4 email series of an event. So if you do an event or a workshop, 2 weeks before, 2 days before, morning of, and your replay at whenever you do those, right? That might not be consistent, but it's whenever you do those. And if you have those 3 email sequences locked and loaded, and you have an inactive patient list of even a couple hundred, you will be able to draw a lot of fruit from that for eternity. And that is the absolute key. Then you're not having to compete every single time. And you shouldn't have to if these people already know, trust, and like you. So Chiro Emails is our service provider that does that. So we built Chiro Emails from the ground up. We have all of this built into it. So we build in all the content for a weekly long-term drip sequence. We build in all of the onboarding sequences already pre-built out, and we have access to the event sequence as well. And I can show that. With Chiro Emails, all of the content is already there, which is obviously the nice part about it. So you don't have to worry about that. So I'll show the inside of that real quick. I showed it on one of the slides, but let's see. 2 accounts, so let me see which account we got here. Cool. So for Chiro Emails, if you were to use Chiro Emails, you would log in, and then this is what it would look like. I don't have the events preloaded in mine because mine's kind of a dummy account. It's not an active account, right? So I have my new patient onboarding and my research that matters. This should say weekly, not monthly. So if I click in there, I can go to, let's say, my monthlies. And this is where we have all of that automation pre-set up for anybody. So all of the emails are already there. And then if you wanted to check it out, we do them the month before. So if you wanted to take a look at it, you could just click over here. You enter your own information. You would enter yours once, and then it would be there. And then from a content perspective, you just click on here. It should bring up a new window. And you can look at the email or edit it to whatever you see fit. So you could just type and do everything. So we build out all of these emails for every single client on Chiro Emails. The goal of that ultimately is the fact of if you can produce all of this content yourself, use Aweber, MailChimp, and everything else. But most of the challenge for a lot of docs is getting the content. So with the Smart Chiropractor, we do the social posts, the blogs, the videos, the video scripts, and all of that. And then this content in the emails mirrors that. So we want that symbiosis online and off. Again, as you get those messages out, don't hesitate to do them the same across all your channels because different people are on different things. And if you're trying to mix and match and say, well, I posted this here this week, you're never going, that's going to become a stream of cobwebs really, really quickly. So as we talked about, recycling your greatest hits is a great idea. And recycle those greatest hits. Look at your Facebook insights as we saw yesterday. See what posts over-indexed and recycle those because you want to get as much juice out of that as possible. But keeping everything, we've found the best that we've seen with our clients and for what we've done for ourselves is keeping a consistent and unified front. So somebody might see something on Facebook, but they kind of scrolled through quickly and maybe it was the disc herniation one, and now they see the email. That's a trigger. They might not have read it on Facebook, but they saw it like subconsciously in passing. Now they get the email, they're gonna be more likely to dive in and read it, right? So it's the same thing as it's retargeting 101 basically, but it's not with the ad spend, but it's making sure that you have the same message appearing in multiple places, which I think is super, super crucial. So this is, I mean, I feel like my goal is not to come up and talk or sell Chiro emails, but this was like a massive undertaking over the last year. So we kind of basically built an entire wireframe of what we needed to have accomplished from the back end of an email service provider, and then built out everything along the way. So the goal of our system, or the benefit of our system, is it's not only all the automations are pre-built, but all of the content is there. But if you want just the ability to send, you could use Aweber, MailChimp, et cetera, but then you got to obviously come up with the automations and the content. So catch-22 there.